Okay, so I've brought you now to the blank page. So I'm going to do just your page for you with your different ledgers in it, your creditors ledger and your bank. This is your bank. I always like to start with the bank because it explains everything that we need to understand. Remember, you will always have a debit side and a credit side. That never changes. You cannot change this, because this is the way that the format is laid out for accounting. Your transactions that you fill in, here will either be on the debit side or the credit side. But this is stuck like glue. It's there. You don't change it. Okay, your bank, you have a payment side and you have a receipt side. If you can remember that, you can remember every single account in accounting. If you remember what I'm showing you now, this is the most important thing for me for the foundation of accounting. I'm just going to move this up a little bit, so I hope that you can see what I've written now. There we go. If I have a look, I'm going to focus on your creditors. Also going to make it easy for you to remember and understand. I love pictures. How does a creditor start? It will always start on the credit side. How do I know that? Because it starts with CR. And earlier in my module, I showed in module 2, if you go back to that, you will see a debtor starts with a debit side. D for debtor or C for creditor. I hope that will help you. Now in your bank, if you receive a payment on this side, the credit side, it will always go to the debit side. You will always, in accounting, you have to cross your legs. So if you haven't learned that in module 2, please go and see it. Or in module 1, I teach you to cross your legs. In the typing situation at school, when I was taught many years ago, you have to put your feet flat on the ground. The teacher said you can't do it any other way. Put your feet flat on the ground and then you can type, because your focus is then focused in a structured manner. Now the same with accounting. That helps you to think. Cross your legs over and it will stay in your mind. You cannot do anything without a crossing of legs. And the meaning of that means crossing of legs. You always have two transactions, never one transaction. It will always affect your bank. If not, it affects another account. Most of your transactions will affect your bank. If you receive money in from the bank, you will then be putting it on the credit side. You received it on the debit side. If you paid out, you paid out on the credit side. It will then obviously go to your debit side. Remember your bank always. When you get any questions in your exams and you remember your bank, there are journal entries. We'll get to those different ones, but if you can remember just going back to your bank, if you don't have a bank transaction and you have to do a journal and it's not affecting your cash or your bank, then I will teach you that as well. But most situations, and even when you do a journal, if you don't have the cash in your hand like you have in your bank, but it says that you received money from somewhere, always think what happens if that money came in from your bank, where would it go? So where does the other leg go? I hope that's helping you, and I will spend time with journals in one of the other modules. But for now, we're going to focus on creditors. So this is the foundation. I'm not telling you how to write it out. I'm trying to teach you the foundations to make it easier for you to remember. Okay, so a creditor always starts with an invoice. And a creditor is, for example, a purchases that you made. So you went along and you bought, let's use an example of a hair salon. You created a hair salon. It's your new business and you want to buy hair products on account. So what happens with your hair products? You don't want to buy it cash. You don't want to go to a bank and just draw your money out, because you want to start this business correctly, and you ask them, can you please do it on a 30-day or a 60-day or 90-day? So it's within a year. So that's a short-term agreement. If it's after 12 months, then it's a long-term agreement. We want to make a loan over a longer period. But in this case, we want to buy over a short period. So what happens is it's a purchase. And if you only have a system that says purchases, just remember that you look at where does it go? Is it cash purchase or is it on account purchase? So in this case, our creditors, we've got a creditors ledger. These are all ledgers. I'm just going to write here. The bank is a ledger. This is a book with your transactions of just the bank. This is another ledger. This is a book with all your transactions just for purchases that you made, anything that you made on account, and your creditors that you owe money to. Okay, let's use an example. Say now I paid out, say on the 1st of July, I paid out for my hair products, let's call it Miracle shampoo, and we paid 6,000 to them. Now, where would that transaction go? Because it wasn't, you didn't buy that on cash, you bought it on account. You will have to open a creditor called Miracle Shampoos. You with me? Remember, they will always have a debit and a credit side. How do you start? You don't start with a payment first. You made an agreement with them first. So you can't say, okay, but I've got a problem because now I've got a payment there, but I don't know where to put it. How much did you buy from this Miracle Shampoos or Miracle Shop? What did you spend there? First of all, because it's a creditor, it started with a credit. Don't get confused about the payments. You're going to see how we're going to cross over now. We paid on the credit side of the bank, but we also need to start an invoice on the credit side of the creditor because CR means credit. Okay, so we have a look here. We started the transaction. Let's make it on the 1st of the 6th, 2024, and we said to them, within 30 days, we're going to pay off half the amount. It started with an invoice. They gave us an invoice for the amount of stock. And the amount of stock that we bought, so let's just put stock here, we bought for 12,000 Rand. You with me? So it started with an invoice here. Because why? We bought an account for 12,000 Rand. So the invoice starts here. Now can you see how important the bank is? Because we paid them a month later, we paid them 6,000 Rand, and there must be a crossover. Do you understand folding your legs and crossing your legs over? There will always be a crossover transaction. Even this transaction, when you bought the stock, it will go to your, because it's a stock item, you would have another account, and that account would be purchases. Or it will go to your stock account, whatever account needs to affect, and you will see it will cross over. You see, if you do the bank wrong, all other accounts will be wrong. So always look back at your bank. This is very important. Always remember that if you get any exam questions, remember your bank. I learned this from an auditing company, somebody that worked in the auditing company, and he helped me to focus on starting with which point? The bank. The bank, the bank, the bank. So we paid them on the 1st of the 7th, 24. What did we pay them? We paid them 6,000 Rand. Okay, now we've got to close off here. Remember, that's a ledger on its own. This is not a ledger. This is not a ledger. This goes into your nominal accounts. That's your trial balance. So ignore this for now, please. Okay, let's just work on this. So we owe 6,000 Rand, but our invoice started with 12,000. So your total must start with what your invoice is because it's a credit. So it starts with that total. What was the total? I bought so much. If you bought another 4,000 Rand, it would be then 16. If I bought and so you will just add on until you've paid it off. In this case, we paid 6,000. So our balance here to total off, our amount to total off will be 12,000 because that's what carries the weight, what we bought. We still owe them another, what do we still owe them? We still owe them, there's the gap, we still owe them another 6,000. Do you see that? Okay. So if we still owe them another 6,000, that will be called balance because we owe them. and the 6,000 goes into that gap there. What happens now? We have to cross over to bring it forward to which month? June, July, August. 24. We brought in 6,000 Rand. Does it look right now? Yes, it does. Because there's the 6,000 that we crossed over, money that we paid. There's the invoice of 12,000. But the balance that's left, you remember the gap that I was talking about? If you take 12,000 off 6,000, you get 6,000. So to get what is left over is the balance that is, and this will be your balance that will be brought to the front that you need to pay still the next month. Always will, your balance will be on the credit side unless there's free refunds, but we're not going to talk about that now. We're just going to talk about the bank, and we're talking about the creditors. I hope that makes sense to you. Remember, whichever transaction you do, think of your bank. Think of what happens in your bank. The first one was 6,000 Rand that you paid, but how did it start? A creditor always starts with a credit, with an invoice, because we bought on account. So we bought stock for 12,000, we paid 6,000, cross over your legs, there we are, we paid 6,000. What was the original amount? It was 12,000 Rand, so the total here will be 12,000. What is my gap that I must have? The gap means my balance. My gap here is 6,000, because 6,000 plus 6,000 is 12,000. So my balance must be brought forward to 6,000 Rand. This is what I owe. But then if I go further on, I went and I paid another amount of 15,800 on the 15th of the 8th. I paid 3,000. Cross over, I paid the 3,000. But we actually had 6,000 that we owed. So there's our total. And we take a 3,000 off from the 6,000. It will be a gap of 3,000. So do we owe them still money? Yes, we do. So we need to cross over, bring it through to the credit side, not the debit side, the credit side, because creditors means credit, debtors means debit. So if you have a debit balance in your creditors ledger, you have a problem. You must have a creditors balance, a credit balance, or you must have a zero balance, because then you paid it off. If you have a debit balance, you have to find out why do you have a debit balance, meaning that you have paid more to your creditor than what you were supposed to pay. So keep that in mind. Always look at your bank. Very important, your bank tells the story. Look at your bank. Your bank tells your story. I hope I can just move it up for you. Put a star there in your mind that it starts with the bank, your payment side. Don't know why this doesn't want to go up now. But your payment side, it starts with your bank. I'm sorry I'm moving you up and down like that. But your payment starts in your bank. You have a payment side, which is a credit, and you have a debit side, which is money that comes in. I hope this makes sense to you. Thank you for your time. Love you. If you know of somebody that's struggling, please pass it on to them, because this is what it's all about. I want to share my knowledge. I want to leave a legacy. You need to leave a legacy as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please follow me, and please subscribe and like, and also comment at the bottom. Did this help you? And if you have any questions, please ask them. Thank you. Bye.